right, we're going to talk about cutting our fabric because Kimberbell supplies an SVG, which is a scalable vector graphic that you can use with your cutting machine. So whether you have a Brother Scan and Cut, a Cricut, or a Silhouette, you can definitely take that file and cut the shape of your fabric. So I'm going to do that on one of the pieces of the pineapple tote. So for the leaves of the pineapple tote, I'm going to spray this with like a fabric stiffener, and it's going to or a fabric stabilizer, and it's going to make this almost like a paper-like consistency, and it's going to be super easy to cut, and fraying will be far less than just trying to cut it and putting it on the mat and cutting it on its own. So there's a couple of products that I use pretty religiously. One you've seen in your store before, and that is Terial Magic. And you can use it for printing, cutting, quilting, crafting, machine embroidery. It's really fantastic. So it makes your fabric a really nice consistency. The other product I like to use is the Sullivan's Fabric Stabilizer. It's about the same consistency. They're both what I call starch on steroids. So these are really fantastic. But today I'm going to use the Terial Magic on that. On the pineapple body, I'm actually just going to use Heat and Bond. So that's another way we can cut our fabric, is to adhere Heat and Bond to the back of our fabric and cut it that way. And so let's do that. So I have, every time I cut a piece of Heat and Bond, I try to cut it just a wee bit less than the fabric allows. That way nothing gets stuck on my iron or on my surface. So let's see how well I did. That's not too bad. I have a little hangover right here, but that's all right. So let's hit it with the iron and get to work on it. All right, I have my iron right here. It's nice and hot. The other thing I'm using is a non-stick sheet or pressing cloth. It's kind of like a Teflon type material. It's really fantastic. So anytime I'm using some Heat and Bond or any kind of adhesive, I'm going to have that on top of my pressing surface. That way nothing gets gunked up on it. And a lot of times you can put another piece on top. That way it doesn't get your iron messed up. So you can use it either way. So with this, I'm just going to hold it in the center. Those of you who use Heat and Bond regularly, this is Heat and Bond Light. It's really important when you're going to use a cutter that you make sure that this is very well adhered. So if you leave it on too long, that glue is just going to not do very well. So it's kind of a delicate balance. And then the other trick that I've learned is to let it cool. So just leave it alone. So before you take this paper off, let it cool and really adhere to the fabric, and then take the paper off. So when we go to the cutter, you'll see I can do one of two things. I can leave the paper on and put the fabric side down and cut in reverse, or I can just put the fabric, keep the paper on it and the fabric side up and cut my design. So if you do it this way, you actually have to flip that design in your cutter to make sure it has the right orientation, or else it's not going to fit your outline that you just stitched on your tote bag. So if you have it face up, fabric side face up, you don't have to do anything to the design. Alright, here's my fabric for the pineapple top. It's nice striped fabric, and again I'm going to use the Terial Magic this time to stiffen up the fabric. You can do a couple of things. You can go to the sink and spray, which is really great, or you can get a plastic bag, toss your fabric in there, spray in there and just kind of manipulate it so all the areas of the fabric gets covered. The other way I like to do is I have this old kind of pizza box like box that I had some heat transfers delivered in, and I saved one of them, and so all I do is spray, make sure it's on. It is not on. One more. I want it to spray. And notice that I'm just getting it all wet. Right there. And that's a pretty good dousing of it. The more you spray it, the stiffer your fabric will get. So now that it is sprayed, I let it dry for about 15 minutes or so, and then I'm going to hit it with a hot iron. Okay, here's my piece of fabric that I use the Ethereal Magic on, and it's still relatively damp. It's not soaking. It's been drying for a while. Like I said, the longer it sits, it'll start to curl up. See, this is already starting to curl up, and it'll start drying and it'll become quite stiff. So I can take my hot iron and I can actually press directly on that. I actually will use another piece of this non-stick sheet and put it right on top. That way my iron doesn't get gunky. And I am just going to iron the heck out of it. Make sure it gets all nice and dry. And actually, once it's not so damp, I will take this top sheet off and press the fabric directly. Let's see what it looks like now. Not too bad, not too shabby. Ooh, very nice. So in the past, so let's look at, let me get a piece of other fabric here. So when you see this fabric, it's all kind of floppy and just kind of hangs like this, right? There's nothing's been done to this piece of fabric. But now that this piece of fabric has been treated with Ethereal Magic, it's not flopping over. It's just nice and stiff. It's going to provide a really nice surface to cut on. And now since it's pretty dry, I will take my iron and just dry it out even more. Sometimes I'll flip it over, get it from the back side, and there you have it. Now my fabric piece is ready to cut. So the instructions don't give any guidance on the large applique piece that we're going to use for our pineapple tote. So what on some other projects that we do, some Kimberbell projects, they advise that to put a piece of fusible woven interfacing. So I use Shapeflex 101, so it's SF, it's a Pellon product, SF 101, and I can cover the whole thing with it. I'm just actually going to just take a scrap that I have left and I'm going to put it to the back side. Now this tone on tone, you can hardly see which is the right or wrong side. So what I like to tell everybody is that if it looks painted on the front, if the print looks painted, that is the right side of the fabric. This side does not look painted. So that's my back side. And I'm just going to put this kind of in the middle here. And that's going to help the embroidery of this piece. There won't be as many puckers because this is pretty satin stitch heavy, this design. And so this will really stabilize your fabric on that. So I have a lot of people that actually use this quite often in all their embroidery. A lot of the newer event projects that Kimberbell does, they do suggest that we add this if we're going to do some sort of applique on top of this, of the background fabric. They suggest adding that. It just really does make your embroidery so much more pretty, and I think you'll really enjoy the results. So this is Shape Flex 101, SF101. It is a Pellon product. You can get it just about anywhere. Joann's, Walmart. I buy, when it goes on sale, I buy 10 yards of it. So, and it lasts me a long time. So there you go.